Morning guys, so this video is going to look at the poem The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Okay, so The Road Not Taken is a poem basically about choices. A lot of you will have come across this poem already in junior cert, so you will have an awareness of it. But today we're going to take a bit more of a deeper analysis of what the poem is about and really consider why Frost actually wrote the poem. Okay, so we take, in junior cycle, you will have taken quite a simplistic reading of the poem. Today we're going to look into it in a bit more detail and look at some of the complexity a bit more. Now, before we go into it, I want you to think, what kind of choices do you find hard to make? Is there any particular choice you think in your life that has really made a significant impact upon your life? Have you made any choices that really, changed how your life maybe went about? And then why is it difficult to sometimes make a choice? Okay, so think about those questions. We'll come back to them in just a second. So, as always, what we're looking to do today is read through, analyse and understand the language and the topic and the story of the poem. We want to look at how the poem fits into themes relevant to Frost's work. Okay, so we'll be able to connect this poem over to some of the other poems we've been looking at and discuss the idea of making choices. Okay, so obviously, video is not the best way to have a discussion, but you can discuss, your ideas in your own. You think about them and have, way of different sides of what's going on. Now, if we go back to this question I asked you to start, people often find it very, very difficult to make choices. Especially as students, you're going to have some choices to make towards the end of 6th year when you're looking at colleges and you're looking at what you want to do after school. You're looking at, your commitment to work. And there's a number of choices that are going to be quite difficult to make that you're going to have to look at. Frost in this poem is ruminating on that idea of making choices. And, when we, in the initial look at the poem, it seems like he's saying that it's important to really think about and make the proper choice, and that choice is going to have far-reaching effects upon your life. However, when we look in a bit more detail at the poem, there is something else going on here. And really the choice that he's making in the poem, he has very little knowledge to back up why he's making the decision he's making. And so there is a bit of discussion going on there about why he's making the choice and the influences of making choices on our lives. Okay, but let's get into the poem straight away. So, The Road Not Taken. Two roads diverged in the yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. Be one traveller along I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passings there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. Okay, so a few first impressions about this poem. What do you think? What lines of the poem stand out to you? What decision does the poet have to make? Is that decision important? Right? And what message do you think Frost is really trying to put across here about decision making? Okay, so I'm going to flick back to the poem. I want you to pause here for 2 or 3 minutes and think about those questions and really look deeply into this poem. Don't assume just because you looked at this in 1st or 2nd year that you know what the poem is about. You may have a good understanding of one interpretation of the poem, but there's quite a lot going on here that you could be looking at in more detail. Okay, so if we just look back to those questions really quickly, what lines of the poem stand out to you? What decision does the poet have to make? Is the decision important? What message do you think Frost is trying to put across here? So the lines that would probably stand out to people that tend to come across is two roads diverged in the yellow wood. Everyone kind of remembers that line. And then took the other as just as fair. Okay, the first line of the second stanza is often one that stands out, and he's looking at, we have the imagery of the woods, and then we have that line saying they're both kind of equal. Okay, they're both paths are equally viable options. And then down at the end, when people look at I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. that tends to be the crux that a lot of the poem for a lot of people, and that's really what they concentrate on. Okay, so those lines really do tend to be the ones that stand out. What decision does the poet have to make? The poet basically has to choose between two options that, from where he stands, are pretty much the same. He has no reason, he has no background knowledge of either option, and he has to make a decision based on very limited understanding. Okay, so that's really what we're looking at here. Is he's making a decision that's somewhat almost arbitrary in terms of he doesn't know where they're going to lead. Okay, now one reading of the poem would say the decision is very, very important because it's going to affect his entire life. However, when you don't know what decision you're going to make, you don't know what effect it's going to have in your life. So when he says that one decision, he chose one road and that made all the difference, really he doesn't know if the other road would have been better or worse for his life. Okay, and really, putting the path of life down to a single decision is a very risky way to kind of look at life, I suppose. Your life is much more than just based on single decisions. So putting down the events of your life down to a single decision, generally it is maybe not the best reflection to be doing in life. So, if we think about this, there is maybe he's putting too much, the way he's thinking about this decision, is he putting too much importance on this decision? Was it really not as important as it may seem in a first reading of the poem? So the message that Frost is putting across here, there's a number of ideas that people could come up with here. It could be, some people interpret this and think in an initial reading that he's saying that it's very important to make the right decision and to think about things because it will have an impact in your life. However, I don't think that's what he's going for here. What I would say is that he's more thinking about, these are arbitrary decisions, and thinking that, looking back and saying, oh, this decision changed my life and made such a huge impact on my life, is really an overly simplistic way to look at things, and perhaps he is critiquing that decision, and we'll go into in a few minutes why he might be critiquing that decision. Okay, so it is quite a straightforward scene, straightforward poem in first reading in terms of language. Not a huge amount is going to be overly challenging here. It's more the context that we're going to look at in a few minutes. We'll go through the poem in detail first of all. So stanzas 1 and 2, setting the scene here. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveller long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. And took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though else for that the passing there had warned him really about the same. So, what does the poet see in the poem? What is the difference between the roads? And up to two roads, which road people seem to take more? Alright, so one day just pause here for 2 minutes, think about those questions. It should take long to think about them. Back and then move on with the poem and have your own opinions, your own ideas, and figure that out. Okay, so what does the poet see in the poem? He sees two roads. He's in a wood, he's walking through a wood, he sees two roads, okay, and this now is metaphorical what seems to be the path of his life rather than just being one bush show in the woods. Okay, and he has two paths to choose from in his life that go different directions, and he has to make a choice of which path to take. We'll learn later on that he probably won't come back. He's sorry that he can't travel both. Both options seem appealing to him. Now, when we look at Frost, maybe we could think about this as being an example of when we know that he was interested in both the rural life and working on the farm, but also in the poetic life. And maybe this is where he is, in his own life, maybe he's finding it difficulty in choosing between those. When we look at the context in a few minutes, it's probably, that's one interpretation you could take, but it's not really the main interpretation people will take of this poem. But really what we're looking at here is that he has two paths. The difference between roads is there is very little difference. Okay. Initially it seems like one path better than the other, but when he examines them, okay, so one path seems green, whereas it was grassy and want to wear. However, when he looks in more detail, so many people have chosen that path that really is pretty much the same as the path, as the more typical paths. Both paths pretty much equal, very little difference in them. And people seem to take them both equally, really, okay? So there's a path that's well trodden. However, there's a path that, the initial path, first path, which is not a grassy, not in need of wear, but then the path that is grassy and needing wear it's being chosen by so many people, really kind of equal. They warn them really about the same. And so there's not much difference between the two of them. So a few just very quick little notes here. The poet creates a simple scene of woodland in autumn, the yellow wood, where he comes across two different paths and needs to decide which one to go down. And the poet tries to predict which follows down the road, but they bend away from him, so he can't predict. Okay, so we can see certain amount of what his decision will lead to, but after the immediate reaction to the decision, he can't see what's going to happen. Okay, so think about it in terms of making college choices. You might be thinking between 2 or 3 different courses if you want to do college. You can see, okay, this one will lead this one will lead this, but really after the end of a few years, you can't really see where those decisions are going to lead you after that. Okay, it's impossible to predict where your life is going to go. Your life could take total different turns that you're not expecting, and that's what he's pointing out here, that these decisions, we can see a certain amount of them, but he can't see the long-term effects of these individual decisions. So metaphorically, we can say symbolize how we cannot truly anticipate what any decisions in our lives are going to lead to. Okay, so don't, it brings to mind the Baz Luhrmann song, Everybody Wears Sunscreen. What is it? Everybody Should Wear Sunscreen. I don't know the exact name, but if you look it up, you'll see the song, where he says everyone's decisions are down to, most of your decisions are down to luck, but then so are everybody else's. And that's what he's pointing out, that's what Frost is pointing out here. Really, the decisions you make, you're not really going to know if they're the right decisions or not for a long time, and you're not even going to know really ever if the other decision would have been the right decision to make. So here's where people often get mixed up with the poem. He states the second road looks much better, was grass and what to wear. However, with the amount of people choosing the road, they're about the same. And that's important here. Both roads are very, very similar. There's very little difference between them. Alright, so moving on, stanzas 3 and 4. And both at morning equally lay, and leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept it first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in the wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. So, which road does he choose? Okay. In stanza 3, what do we learn about this choice? What change in language happens at the beginning of stanza 4? It's very important change in language here. And do the final line to match with the rest of the poem. Okay, so again, pause here for a minute and think about it. Okay, so there is somewhat of an ambiguity here in terms of the first question, what road does he choose? About that morning evening that they, I kept it first for another day, so he seems to take the one where it was grass and what to wear, but it's really arbitrary, and he's going for that bit of ambiguity here. It is not overly important which road he takes, but we know that the choice, he's never going to be able to come back and see down the other road. He'll never be able to make the choice again. He's made the choice, he's gone down the road, the other road is now closed off to him. He won't ever go down that road again because he'll never be back in the same place to make the same decision. So it is going to have effects, but they'll never know if it was the right decision or not, and they'll never see the events of the other decision. The change in language here is a change in tense. Okay, so in the first 3 stanzas, it's all talking in past tense. He's talking about a decision that he made. Now in the final stanza, he's talking about the future. Okay? I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. So he's talking about what's going to happen in the future. So this is him contemplating the future and what the decision he made is going to have an effect in the future. Okay, and that's very, very important in terms of what we're going to look at in a second. Do the final lines match the rest of the poem? And here it's somewhat, this is where people think, there's a lot of different interpretations going on with this end of the poem. People like to think that, oh, yes, the decision he made such a difference. But if we look at the lines that come before that, it's not really what he's saying here. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Okay, so he's going to be telling a story somewhere. I'm telling it with a sigh. Looking back, nostalgia on his life. Oh, he'll be an old man sigh. Oh yes, when I was young and I went and I made this decision. Okay, so it's very much, he's going to be telling a story at some point. Okay? He's going to be telling the story of how the 2 roads were diverged, and he's going to tell people that he chose one less traveled by, and he's going to tell them that made a huge difference. But we've probably learned that the roads are pretty much the same. But how are you choosing one less traveled by when they're both pretty much equal? So a lot of things going on here. We're going to look at that in a second. So Frost outlines again the similarity of decision he has to make. Which road should he choose when both equally lay? And they seem new and appealing, no step trodden black. So they both seem pretty much the same. He keeps making that point. The narrator seems to be comforting himself about making the decision by saying he can take the other road at a different date. So he's trying to, make sure, wake himself, saying, just make a decision. You can come back, you can change your mind. Really, he knows you can never actually really change your mind. The change in tense, as I just said, is very, very important here, because it's now telling us about the future. He's trying to predict what he's going to do in the future. Okay? And the sigh is purposely ambiguous. Is it from contentment, or is it from regret? Is it the contented side? Oh yes, I made this great decision. Or oh yeah, I made that decision. Okay, why is it a sigh? Okay, the sigh is a lot of ambiguity there, and that's intentional from Frost. Okay? And so he imagines himself telling a story of how he took a road less travelled. That's the story he imagines himself taking. But this story is really just to soothe his ego. He wants to be seen as an individual. You see this kind of stuff all the time. Like, oh yeah, I took the less travelled road. I made the different decision. I'm unique. Okay? That's what he's kind of making fun of here. Okay? He's soothing that ego and explaining how his individuality is so important to who he is as a person. But really, everything is kind of by chance, because he didn't know which road he would take it. He just took one of the roads. It's not really, it wasn't a great decision. It wasn't just an amazingly insightful decision to make. He just chose the road. However, so we know both roads are equal. They're both frequently travelled. So rather than just being a highly moralistic message about following dreams, okay, it's not really what the poem is about, but some people like to think of the poem to be about. If you look at it in more detail, it doesn't seem to be what's really going on. It seems to be more mockery of people who are self-congratulating themselves on making decisions that they really had very little knowledge of. Okay, so don't be one of those people who are like, oh yeah, I made the right decision, You just made a decision like everybody else. You chose the road. Maybe you got lucky, maybe you didn't with your decision, but it was more down to luck than it was down to your amazing insight into the decision. And that's really what the poem is looking at here, okay? And I'll tell you now in a second why we know that that's what the poem is about. So what is it really about? The idea in the final lines seems to state that making an unusual or individual choice can make all the difference. Though it is an appealing idea, it doesn't fit with the poem. Right? If we're saying that, we're not really looking at the rest of the poem where it keeps saying everything's equal. Right? That interpretation of the final stanza doesn't really match up. It is an interpretation that we tend to look at if we're looking at junior cycle. It's kind of simplistic way of looking at this, but it doesn't really make sense here in terms of looking at the whole poem. The poem seems simple when you first read it, but actually hugely full of subtlety and wit. So we'll look at three different interpretations here. First interpretation, Frost is ruminating on the importance of decisions in our lives, but also the need to make decisions based on limited information. So decision is very limited. That's bend in the woods, bend in the roads we can't see, but it's important to make a decision. Now, we can definitely say that it is important to make a decision. We can't just stand there and wait. Okay? He has to make a decision. Okay? It's not saying that it's important to be insightful and make the proper right decision every time. It's just to move, keep your life going. Okay? That seems to be an important aspect of this. Don't be standing there waiting for some, almighty being to tell you which way to go. Make a decision and go with it and commit to it. We could be looking at the idea of memory. Okay, so this is going into a bit more complex interpretation. Looking back in life, life's simple decisions can seem to be vital and influential in our lives. But what if I had made that decision? What if I had made that decision? Would my entire life be different? Really, we people often try to put positive spins on their decisions. It's like, oh, I made the right decision because look what happened after. But we don't know. We'll never know if we make right decisions, most right decisions. And we like to try and it's comforting to think that we made the right decision. It's comforting to think, oh yeah, when I had that decision to make, I really thought about it and I really made the decision that was right for me. But we see in the poem, he just chose a road. It wasn't overly insightful. He just made the choice and went with it and committed to it, and hopefully it worked out for him. Okay? At least that's the narrative, the commentator at the end is going to kind of spin the story that way that it worked out for him. Okay? So he's talking about memory and how we choose possibly to make our memories self-promoting and make us look good through the way we recall our own past and decisions we made in the past, but we recall them in a way that makes us look good. However, Frost himself has said this. He has said that he was fooling in writing this poem. He wrote this poem in a very light-hearted way, and then he read it to people, and people take it very seriously. But he said he was, fooling around. It was a joke. It was kind of making a joke. And what he was doing is he was making fun of a friend of his called Edward Thomas. Right? And Thomas was one of these people who constantly looked back on decisions, constantly, I should have regretting decision, I should have made this decision that day, or I should have done this differently in my life. It would be so much better if I'd done this. I wish I had done this. And constantly regretting decisions. And Frost was kind of trying to make fun of him, like, that decision between two roads in the wood, that's changed your life completely. And he's making fun of him for that. Okay? He's making fun of his friend, trying to make his friend realise it doesn't matter what decision you make, it's how you deal with the decision and how you react, and your attitude to and how you work with that decision as you move through life. That's really going to have an effect. You don't know if you made the right decision or not. You don't know, maybe you made a decision and lost a lot of money, but maybe if you chosen a different path, you would have lost even more money. We don't know what's the right decision, and we never really know if the decision we made are what effect a different decision would have had. We just accept it, and he's trying to get that across to his friend Edward Thomas. Stop this kind of, I wish I had done this, I wish I had done this, I wish I had done this. You've made a decision, go with it, and move with your life, okay? So a considered reading of this poem must take into account that humour. Okay, the fact that he's kind of poking fun at his friend, mocking his friend, who's always kind of saying, my life could be better if I'd done this. Okay? So it's a lovely poem. It's very, a poem that people really, really enjoy. It's a poem that sticks in people's minds very well, but there is a complexity to it, and if you're going to write that in literature, you need to be able to refer to that complexity. Okay. In terms of quotations, one of the things people, students and linguists are very, very concerned about is learning of quotations. Learning quotations, I'm suggesting, is just a matter of habit and learning how to do it, and familiarity with poems. You have to learn how to learn things by rote, off by heart. And one of the greatest ways of doing this, and students tend to think of me strangely when I say this, but if you can learn an entire poem off and be able to recite a poem, then the concept of learning a line from a different poem, it seems so much more manageable to you, and you'll have such a much greater confidence in yourself. So I usually suggest that this is one of those poems. It's a very nice, very short, quick and easy to remember poem. It's a great poem to learn off. I know I learned it off when I was in school, and I still pretty much know it line for line. Maybe two mistakes if I haven't looked at it in a while. But if you can learn a poem off, then the idea of, I have to learn three lines from this poem, 3 lines from this poem, it seems so simple, because you will put the effort in, I can learn an entire poem off. Yeah, I can definitely learn a few lines from a few different poems off as well. Okay, so something to think about if you're really thinking about, if you're really someone who worries about quotations, maybe think about learning this poem off, put it up somewhere on your wall, read through it a few times a day. You'll learn it off pretty quickly. It's very simple, it's a very straightforward poem, and it's one of those poems that really sticks in people's heads. If you can get this poem into your mind, it'll make you so much more confident in that idea of learning off quotations. Form of language here is simple, it's direct and it's descriptive. Again, it's casual phrasing, conversational style that is typical to Frost. He uses a disciplined pattern of regular 5-line stanzas and uses iambic tetrameter with occasional unstressed syllables. But despite these constraints, the poem feels simple and relaxed. So despite the fact that there is very strict form here, it feels, when you read it, it just feels simple and easy to read. And that is what the structure actually allows. Okay, the regular beat, the meter of the poem allows that kind of simplicity to it. And simple language and form tempts us to assume that the poem is very, very simple. It seems simple from first reading, it seems almost childish, but do not ignore the intricacies.